Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ellen Explains It All. If you somehow don't know what this is yet, I don't know, get your life together.
I
This
can bring
is
it
the
in.
show. Yeah, seriously. Um, This is the show where I demystify AWT myths and rumors with our executive director, Amanda Chin. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Ellen. Hi, everybody.
Before we get started, I had the absolute pleasure of seeing Amanda's wonderful performance in Next to Normal this past Sunday. So, my question for her today, if you saw that performance, you know where this is coming from. How do you cry on cue?
The way you cry on cue is first you live a life full of fun.
Okay. Okay.
And then then you get a part, and then you go on stage. And then maybe at some point you have to cry, and
hmm
you tap into the life that you have lived. And unfortunately for some, it's pretty easy to reach into that well.
So, get in touch with your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, if it's hard to cry on cue because there isn't much to tap into, consider yourself lucky. But
Yeah,
also, time marches on. Things happen.
true, true. Okay, so I need to like really get in touch with my feelings.
Yeah, either that or bite your tongue
Darn.
really hard.
I've been avoiding those.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, incredible. I always felt like I always wanted to be able to cry on cue, not just for theater, but also to be manipulative.
Oh, sure, sure.
You know?
Noble, very noble.
Like if
There's
you get pulled
probably,
over, you
yeah,
can turn on the waterworks
I
and
know. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there might be some things you could think about that's going on in the world that could
Maybe,
bring you to tears. Maybe.
maybe. Not sure what you're talking about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
probably. Thank you for that.
You're very
Uh,
welcome. You're very welcome. A rare post submission question.
well, I usually ask you like, what did you eat for
That's true.
breakfast?
That's
And
true.
and this felt more topical.
Sure. Yeah. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. With that out of the way, today's topic is policies and processes. This topic basically covers all things rules.
Yeah.
Definitely a very sexy topic. Also, very important.
Yes. Very important.
Yes. As always, just so you know, if I skip your question or your question is reworded a little bit, it's probably because somebody else asked it or it falls under a different upcoming topic. There's never any tea or any shade over here.
Not at all.
None at all. And with that out of the way, you all had some great cues, so let's dive in. Our first question is, this may be more of a casting question, but how does attendance affect casting? Is there a certain amount of rehearsals someone needs to be available for to be considered for a lead? I've been in shows where the leads have missed stumbles slash shows before, so was just curious if there is a policy about this. Also, if someone misses a lot of rehearsals, is there any policy on having them sit out of certain numbers if it becomes a safety concern? And this was a question that was asked a few times. So,
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a bit of a two-parter, I suppose. Um, I will say in terms of absences, so like disclosed absences, I don't think there's anything that a creative team or that I have witnessed a creative team look at in terms of absences that says where it makes them say right off the bat, oh, we're not going to consider them for, a big part.
mhm.
That being said, when things start to get narrowed down and they're down to like the last three or four people, a couple things happen. First, we have to make sure that there is a person for each part in the two casts. So let's say they know they want someone in one cast and they have to be in the Tuesday cast. And maybe for the Thursday cast, it's up for grabs. Not up for grabs, but it's narrowed down to a couple people. If there's somebody in that pile that also can only be in the Tuesday cast, sorry, like
Mhm.
logistics like that, when it gets to that point, like those types of things could happen. Could they look at two people who they absolutely cannot choose between and all things are equal between them, but one of them has to miss all of tech and the other one can be there? Like, yeah, that might sway their decision one way or another. But I would not say there is a policy in place that would rule someone out automatically. So I think
Hmm.
that's the first part of the question. And then the second part was, oh, so the answer to we do have we do have a policy in terms of if you've missed a lot of rehearsals, and I wouldn't say it's a matter of like the number of rehearsals, but like what you've missed. And like, let's say a person has missed the rehearsal, like to learn a number and then missed the rehearsal to review it. And then in the stumble through, like they had to sit out that number because they didn't learn it. At a certain point, we tell the creative team knows and the participants know because it is in the policies that are on the show pages, but it's the creative team's discretion to say like, hey, we're gonna have to take you out of this number. Like it's not because we're mad or it's not because like we're trying to punish you, but it's just a safety thing. And it has been exercised before. I will say, in my opinion, I wish it was exercised more often.
Hmm.
But like the teams, and you know, rightly so, I can certainly empathize with this. They don't want to remove people from parts of the show. They really want people to succeed as much as possible. And also, there are participants who could learn it on their own in five
Hmm.
minutes with a video. And, you know, sometimes they trust, you know, participants that they know to do that. And there's other participants who really, you know, don't have the ability or the time to do that. And sometimes the creative team doesn't know like what kind of person it is that they're dealing with. I think they tend to err on the side of keeping people in, but you know, I very much hear where this question is coming from.
Hmm.
And I say they have the discretion, and I hope they use it when it makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Next question. Are there protocols in place for creative team members to remove folks from parts of a show if they pose a safety risk to folks around them, whether it be because they are consistently in the wrong place or doing the wrong thing on stage? So pretty similar, but a different angle.
Yeah, I mean the creative team's priority is safety.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I think removing somebody altogether, like if someone's really trying, I think removing them altogether is extreme. I think modifications would come in next, or like reblocking,
Hmm.
or something, you know, to accommodate for that. But I would say, you know, if there's a moment of being unsafe, so I would say it's probably not as stringent as the way the person is has asked the question. But yeah, it's absolutely a priority.
Shifting focus, our next question is, would you consider waiving the 2 week refund period for shows that have a large wait list, since you're likely to fill that spot immediately even if someone drops out last minute? Relatedly, would you consider allowing someone who drops out within the 2 week window to use whatever they already paid for the show as a credit for another show if someone from the wait list fills their spot? So, two questions there.
Yeah. Um, So one thing I will say about the wait list is it doesn't the length of the wait list is not necessarily an indication of ease of filling a spot.
Mhm.
And I know this wasn't the question, but we did increase the time period from 1 week to 2 weeks,
Mhm.
because we did find that the closer it was to launch day that a spot opened up, the harder it was to fill it because somebody who like put their name on the wait list 2 months earlier, life happens. Like they made other plans, they, you know, signed up for something else in that time period. So just the existence of a wait list doesn't mean we're automatically going to waive that um the 2 week, you know, time period. That being said, we have worked with people in the past where if we are able to fill their spot um because they have withdrawn from within that 2 week period, we've given them a portion of their tuition back as a credit. And it's sort of,
Mhm.
it's like we take it on a case by case basis. But I also, you know, kind of encourage everyone to keep in mind, like, this is not a money making grab, like these
Mhm.
policies. Like they also exist because when we open registration for shows, and we theoretically fill all the spots or like fill the majority of them and keep registration open and let it trickle in, Meryl, who's in charge of all that, she moves on to other things that she's responsible for. So when
Mm,
there's an influx of cancellations or people dropping out, like we're trying to make sure people are making a decision like with a lot of thought, and like taking the commitment seriously, because if she's now processing, trying to fill 5 waitlist spots when she's actually supposed to be getting, something else going on the website or taking
mhm,
care of something else in Salesforce, that's shifting her focus and her productivity away from what, she's supposed to be doing. So there's other reasons why these policies are in place. It's not necessarily to just like get and keep your money. It's also to keep our very lean team like working very efficiently and productively on the things that are scheduled for that time period.
mhm. Yeah, that makes total sense. I did a good job of like lumping the questions that are related together this
Give
time.
yourself a pat on the back there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must be my new Adderall prescription.
Fantastic.
I signed up for my second choice show in a season, but ended up getting off the wait list for my first choice. Would I be able to drop from my second choice show in order to switch without taking any penalties?
I actually don't know. I actually meant to ask Meryl the answer to this. So the penalty, I assume, is the $20 processing fee. Like and for those who don't know, if you withdraw from a show, if you're a returner and you withdraw, in advance of the 2 week window, you get a credit back minus a $20 like service fee, which
Mm,
accounts for, the extra work that has to be done in order to process this. First of all, the answer is yes, you can switch into the other program. And like depending on which one costs more, like you'll either get a credit back for the difference or you only have to pay the difference. I'm gonna go ahead and say I do think we waive the $20 processing fee, but like I'm gonna wait for this to post and then Meryl might
comment.
Meryl's gonna be the one to like post this and she might say no, that's wrong. And then maybe Ellen, you're gonna put a thing over the
Yes. I'll put it right here.
Yeah, great.
No, this is wrong.
No, this is wrong. You still have to pay the
Yeah.
$20 fee, which you might. You might.
Another related question. I'm getting so good at organizing these. Okay. Big fan of the lottery process here. I am curious to know if it takes into account things like if a person is trying to get into a show after not having been in one for a few years versus someone who's been in shows back to back. Does someone who's been in shows less frequently stand a better chance, or is it really just luck of the draw? And this was another one that was asked a few times.
Yeah, great question. Um, it does not take into account if you've not done a show in a while, but it does take into account if the last time you entered the lottery you did not get picked.
Mm,
That those who don't get picked get entered more than once the next time. So it will increase
mhm.
their chances of getting picked. And
That's
that's really
awesome.
kind of the only thing in place that I think is adjacent to that question.
Yeah, that is awesome. I did not know that, but that's a great, I don't know how to describe it, fix, or I don't know, a way to handle that, I guess, so people don't just keep losing, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a policy in place for participant communication with creative team members before and or right after casting? For example, if someone feels really strongly about a part they want to play in a show, are they able to message the creative team after launch slash ahead of the casting process to vouch for their consideration for said part? Similarly, can someone who feels a way about the way they were cast message or talk to the creative team after the cast list has already gone up to ask about more opportunities in the show?
Great. So another two-parter.
Yes.
First of all, like just big picture, I'm an open door policy kind of gal.
Hmm.
I believe anybody can ask a question.
Yeah.
And I'm big on that. And I know that there's more to that like question, which is like, is it frowned upon? Does it make people judge you? Does it whatever? It doesn't make me judge anybody.
Hmm.
I want people to ask the questions. I want people to express their feelings. Now, does that mean every single creative team member is going to, they know, when they're hired, they know that that's what our vibe is. Are they fully going to embrace that? I don't know. I hope that they do.
Hmm.
So that's kind of first and foremost as a blanket statement. The teams, I think for them, I think pretty much every season in recent years, especially for book shows with roles and parts, they create what we call a pre-launch day forum where they're like they might ask some specific questions to the show, like, "Hey, do you juggle?" Or like, "Hey, do you
Hmm.
speak another language?" Or, "Hey, do you mind, rolling around on the floor?" So it might those might be things very specific to the production they're doing. And they almost always ask, like, is there a part you're particularly interested in? Is there a part you definitely don't want to play? Is there anything else you want to tell us about what you want to get out of this process? I strongly encourage people to, if that is given, if that is offered to you, answer those questions. Answer
Hmm.
them honestly. Go ahead and say, I want to be Elle Woods. No one's going to judge you, and it's going to make the team be like, okay, this person really wants this. Let's think about
Hmm.
it. Doesn't mean you're going to get the part at
Right.
all. But them knowing what you want out of it is really helpful. And if you think it's better to be noble and like be like, I'm happy to play anything when that's not really true, you're just setting everybody up for failure.
Hmm.
Please say what you want out of the program. It doesn't mean you're going to get, what you want, but it really, really is helpful, and the team really does consider it. So, and it also doesn't have to be part specific. If you're like, I want to dance a lot, I don't care if I
Hmm.
have no lines. Like, I don't care, like, if I'm a dancing tree, like, as long as I'm
Right.
dancing, like, please say that. Please say that. I actually love it. I almost always am like, I actually don't want any lines whatsoever. Like you might think like, let's throw her a line. I don't want one line. I want zero lines. Like say that too. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
nothing annoys me more than having to remember like three lines in the show.
Yeah.
So that's one. Two, the please, yes, please, if you have feelings after the casting list comes out or even like before, like if it's before and you've said everything you need to say on the list, like just go out with your friends and like have fun and just don't think about it for a couple days until you're
Hmm.
going to be thinking about it. But if the list comes out and you're feeling a certain way, like I don't want what, the speech I used to give and what many people have adopted. I don't want people to misinterpret that as like just be happy with what you get. That's not what it's about at all. Like please
Hmm.
like sit with your feelings, honor them, talk to the people you need to talk to about it. And if it ends up like you need to talk to the creative team, like please do it. Like I'm pretty sure, I can't, again, I can't speak for every single one of them, but I'm pretty sure they'd rather know what's going on in your head than try to interpret the face you're making in rehearsal. They'd
Hmm.
rather have a conversation like directly about it. And they're not going to come up to you. They're not going to be like, "Hey, I noticed you're making a face. Like, what's happening?"
Hmm.
And the only way through it is to have that conversation. And a couple of things are going to happen if you do that. One, they're going to encourage you to wait because one thing that also happens is you get the cast list and you're like, I'm not doing anything in this show. You have absolutely no idea what you're going to be doing in the show based
Right.
on three words that are next to your name on the cast.
Hmm.
Like please keep in mind like it is their priority to make sure everybody is doing a lot in the show. And I promise you that if you see the cast list and you're like my part is really really small, all you're going to do for the next 2 months is find evidence that your part is
Hmm.
really small. But if you think to yourself, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to keep an open mind and I'm going to have a lot to do, then you will find evidence that you're having a lot of fun and you have a
Hmm.
lot to do. Confirmation bias is a really, really, really real at
Hmm.
AfterWork Theater, especially when it comes to your thoughts about casting. That being said, again, talk to the team because when they know when there's still things that happen in the creation of the show where they could be like, you know what, this person like really wanted an opportunity. Like I think we could put them in this number
Hmm.
and like give them a little extra something to do. Like they will find ways to add you in if that is your desire. If that's truly your desire and they like look at your track and they're like, okay, I think there are some opportunities that we could find here. They also might look at your track and be like, please trust us.
Yeah.
Like, please trust us and don't expect that it's going to be bad. Because if you expect it'll be bad, it will be bad.
Yeah.
I
Love
hope
those
that answers
answers.
it.
What is an intimacy coordinator? And when does AWT decide these are necessary for a rehearsal?
It's a great question, and I'm sure it's coming from the fact that we've been employing one more often for our
Hmm.
shows. And I will say moving forward, by default, we're going to expect to work with either an intimacy coordinator or an intimacy director on every production. And we will determine based on, Riva talking to the directors, like, do we actually need them? Some directors also have that experience, but even if they do, it's also good practice to bring in somebody external. So I mentioned two different types of intimacy professionals. So a coordinator will sit with the cast and kind of talk through how to set boundaries and good practices for how to work with your scene partners. And an intimacy director will also do that, but also direct like specific scenes or numbers. And whether we work with one or the other, and I say one or the other, but like presently we work with one person and we may bring her on either as a coordinator or a director.
Hmm.
And she's wonderful. Um, it'll really come down to like, does the show call for it? And since Young Frankenstein, which is currently going on right now, has been described as a very horny show, we were like, okay, I guess we're bringing Kat in to work with
It
the
is
Kat.
indeed a very horny show.
A very horny show. But I mean, off the top of my head, like, I guess if we did Matilda or
Hmm.
Annie, like maybe we don't need an intimacy.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Great question, great answer. How would we be able to start a fundraising event for scene props and costumes specifically?
That is an interesting question that maybe I should take a step back and just kind of talk about like donations in general.
Hmm.
From a marketing perspective, we talk about like financial assistance and pay what you can. But really donations that come in are just coming into a general fund. It
Hmm.
means we can use it however we want. We just like we talk about financial assistance and pay what you can because we've already planned to spend money on props and sets and the limited amount like the specialty costumes that we need to and all of the production costs. And unfortunately, like things like financial assistance, like we like because all of those expenses are already planned for, we often say that fundraising is for these programs, but it's when you make a donation you're making it to just our general fund.
Hmm.
So really, like all of our income from from donations as well as from tuition and ticket sales are covering all of our costs, all of our like program costs, general operating costs, financial assistance, and everything else that we either spend money on or take off from folks spending on us. So we could do specific fundraise like the once you start getting into fundraising for things as specific as sets and props, if we were to fundraise for those things, then we have to spend it on those things. And it really
Hmm.
limits us as a nonprofit from being adept and from being agile rather,
Hmm.
um, and being flexible in terms of how we're spending the money. That being said, we do fundraise for things like sets and props and some costume pieces. And we do it via our wish list. So
Hmm.
every season we ask the teams, like, what do we need for the show so that we can take a little, like, ease the burden of our expenses and our production budget. And we send out a link to our wish list to everyone in our community and to the folks who are interested in donating in that way. And many people are interested in doing that because they know very specifically what they're spending their money on.
Hmm.
So, I think there's a Frankenstein head and a, Bride of Frankenstein wig or something on
Yes.
the list. And there's, if you look at the list, it's clearly like, oh, that's for Young Frankenstein, that's for the Crucible,
Yeah.
that must be for the Sing Out. There's always some boas or something on the list. I hope that answers the question. And if also always happy to follow up with anybody if they want to
Mhm.
talk about any of these topics. But I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, perfect. And that wish list just went out the other day.
It did.
I
It
got it
did.
in my inbox, and you probably did too. All right, our last question. You knew it was coming, Amanda. What is the next main stage musical? Smiley Face?
Don't know. And I
Okay.
don't know not because I don't do that anymore. We are waiting. Riva has applied for many shows. Riva applied months ago for the spring, and there's a first choice show we're waiting for,
Mm,
and there's a second choice show that we're waiting for, and I think we have the rights to what would be our third choice show. Well, I'm
okay.
not going to say what that is because hopefully we get the first choice, possibly
Okay.
the second choice.
Okay. Well, then hold tight, everyone.
And I haven't said any of those titles in this interview today. I'll at least give you
Okay,
that
good. Okay, good. All right. Well, that is all of our community questions. Instead of a AWT Mythbusters today, Amanda says that she has some hot news to
I
share.
do. I do have some hot news. So a few couple of weeks ago, Riva posted on their own socials about going to grad school.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, Riva, people are going to ask you questions about this. And Riva was like, I don't think anyone in the community follows me. And I was like, I would not underestimate this community's ability to find information and run with it. And then I think I told that to someone. I think I said it in a board meeting last night, and I think someone was like, "Oh, people have seen it."
Yeah, people have seen.
So Riva is going to grad school in Chicago in September, and will be leaving her post at AfterWork Theater. We already know who is taking Riva's place, and she's a person who has been introduced to this community, and her name is Mackie Saylor, and she's teaching the directing class in the spring.
Oh, nice.
And in August, she will be taking over as the program manager for AfterWork Theater.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, now
Everyone was talking about this.
you tell me what that was like. What were people saying? People saw the post and
Oh my goodness. It really was like someone told me, I heard it from a friend of a friend, and then everyone was like, "Oh, I already heard that." Like I
yeah,
never underestimate.
never underestimate, never underestimate. But Riva's been doing an incredible job and is
Mhm.
going to make the transition to handing things over to Mackie so much easier than it was when I handed things off to Riva, because they've been like creating documentation and handbooks and keeping much better notes than I have been. And also, they're going to have the two of them are going to have a full month overlap where they're
Oh,
both here.
great.
And Mackie's going to get to know the community through this class, as well as probably Mackie came to the fall shows and probably will come to the winter shows and might sit in on some rehearsals as well.
Great. Very sad to be losing Riva.
I
She's
know.
awesome, but also excited because I am taking the directing class and I am excited to actually meet our program director
Yeah.
a
Did
little bit earlier.
anybody guess that Mackie was going to be more involved? Like that would have been a wild ass guess if people figured that out.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
hadn't heard any names. I did hear that someone had an offer, but I did not hear a name.
You guys are powerful.
Yeah,
I'm never not impressed. Like you guys are a force.
very, d detective, very, very
Yeah,
Sherlock Holmes, this group.
good for you. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
All right. Well, with that hot news item out of the way, that is all we have for today. Thank you, as always, for being so open, Amanda.
Yeah, you're
It's
very
always a
welcome.
pleasure. And thank you to everyone else for submitting your questions. You're all the best, and this wouldn't be possible without you.
Yes,
And
thank you,
yeah,
Ellen. As always, very gracious host, very excellent liaison to the community, and thank you everyone who submitted questions. Very happy to always answer questions.
Yes. Yay.
Yay.
Alrighty.
Love.
Bye.
Bye.